All right, a new educational chess game. I have black and my opponent is going to play against me. What? He plays e4. Well, I'll play e5. For now, it's symmetrical, nothing crazy. He plays knight to f3, knight to c6 to defend, and now he chooses bishop. c4, the Italian game. I'll play like him, I'll play bishop to c5. The bishop is dangerously targeting the pawn on f7, and the knight would love to join in to attack the pawn on f7. But for now he can't because my queen would capture. And now I'm going to start playing knight to f6. I know he can play knight to g5 once I've played knight to f6 because that blocks my queen's control over g5. But I will be able to kingside castling and the rook will come to defend f7. So kf6 on kg5, kingside castling. He plays d3 and I'm going to play d6. I'm not afraid of kg5, I do kingside castling and I'm not afraid of fg5. Why? Because I haven't made kingside castling yet. So on fg5 I can play h6, push back his bishop with the advance of my pawns, which will attack his castling. As for my king, it can always do queenside castling. But he decides to play kdg5. So here, kingside castling, I have to defend f7. The double capture on f7 is not advantageous for him. Because he will trade knight and bishop, 3 points and 3 points, 6 points against rook and pawn, which also makes 6. So from a material point of view, we're close to equality. But he will have traded 2 active pieces for my pawn and my rook, which for now weren't active. He plays a 3. What is he trying to do? Maybe he's trying to give his bishop an escape square. If I play knight to a5 so that he has the option to retreat to a2, because that's what I was planning to do anyway. And maybe he'll want to play b4 to attack my bishop, b5 to attack my knight, things like that. Well, I think I'm going to play a 6, same idea. Giving my bishop an escape square. Well, I don't know if that's a very high quality move actually. He plays c3, he's preparing d4. But after d4, I could take, and his pawn would be attacked twice. So I can chase his knight with h6, but he'll come back to f3, which could support the push of e4. Even though it's true that I have the pin on h6, knight f3, bishop g4, I pin. He can play kd2, protect, and then push e5. What happens then? Take, knight takes. Watch out for moves like queen b3 as well. He might have moves like queen b3 to attack along the diagonal. Here. I'm not really sure. Listen, I'll play h6. Let's push back his knight. And now maybe bishop e6. Offer the exchange of bishops. If he takes, I recapture with the pawn. It doubles my pawns, but they're not doubled just anywhere. They're doubled in the center, actually. And that will open the f-file for my rook. I'll play like this, bishop e6. If he takes, it brings my pawn closer to the center and opens the f-file to possibly try to find attacks against his king. He comes to b3. So here he lets me take, but it's the queen that would recapture, attacking the pawn on b7. And if I play bishop g4 now, he has knight d2. Maybe play b5. I'll play b5 here. So why am I playing it? To be honest, I don't even really know why I'm playing it. Maybe if there's a capture, queen takes, I'd be happy that the pawn b7 is not attacked. And I want to see what he's going to play. But here, I admit that I don't really know how to proceed in this position. Maybe, certainly, I'll have to look for the d5 push at the right moment. Or else move the knight and look for the f5 push. But not right away, of course, because I have a problem on the diagonal. But sooner or later, I'll have to look for that d5 lever or that f5 lever. Levers for development to come into conflict with his central pawn. So he takes, I take back. And now, in the end, he's opened the f-file for me. He plays b4, he's attacking. My bishop, I'll calmly bring it to b6. I keep the face-off with his king. He plays c4, he's attacking b5. Is there a threat? Take, it's not really a threat. I'm not afraid of that. It opens the a-file. Here, I want to move. The knight, maybe knight h5, knight f4. But if I play knight to h5, my knight is in the sights of his queen. He'll play knight takes pawn e5. And as soon as I recapture, he'll take my knight. On h5, he will have won a pawn. So I'll play queen to e8. That will protect my knight's arrival to aim for the f4 square. The outpost on f4 located on the semi-open file. And if the bishop captures, I can take with the rook, try to double the rooks or even triple the rooks on the f file. Triple the rooks, well, triple the heavy pieces. Place both rooks, the queen, try to stack everything on the f file against the knight. But here my idea is really that there's h5, knight to f4. He puts the queen on e2. What is he attacking? He's attacking nothing. Knight to h5. If he plays kd2, it blocks the bishop, and kf4 will arrive with even more force. Then dg6 as well, threats of mate on g2, attacks on his queen, things like that. You see, in this position, what's interesting is that now I have a semi-open file. His rooks can't find a way to get into the game. It's true that I have some neglected pawns, but he controls the central squares, and my rooks can become active on the f file. So, of course, I'm not going to take the knight right away. The queen could recapture, but I'll look for the right moment to do it. He plays the bishop to e3, so there. Knight f4. If he takes, we recapture with the rook. And there you go, I recapture with the rook. Now there's pressure on f3, there's pressure along this diagonal. The queen can come to f7 to h5, the knight to d4, the rook to f8. We can still find some attacking chances. If I play queen h5, the knight can't move because his queen would be hanging. But what am I threatening? I'm not threatening knight to d4 because he could take while defending his queen. Here I can see that my pieces are well placed. The bishop is very well placed, the rook as well, the queen will come to h5, the rook to f8, everything will be well positioned. But I don't see the breakthrough. How am I going to make him crack? I feel like my pieces will be at their maximum and I don't see any further progress. My knight, the problem is, it doesn't have access to that d4 square. Honestly, I don't know here. I'm still going to play queen h5, but maybe it's not the best move. We'll look at the analysis, but I want to let the rook come in. I'm worried about queen-queen. He plays g3. That might be dangerous for him. He pushes back my rook. That's true. But that's going to weaken the protection of the knight. For now, it's still holding for him. Maybe rook f6. I'm going to play rook f6. And the other rook will come in, and there will be 3 attacks on the knight on f3. So he can play king g2, which is what he does actually. He played that to get out of the line of sight with my bishop, I think. But I bring in the other rook, and there's still a lot of pressure on the knight on f3. But that's what I was telling you earlier. I feel like I've reached the maximum of my pressure. It's hard to improve. My bishop, my rooks, my queen, maybe I could improve the queen, but I don't really see how. How? It's the knight, actually. And I don't have knight to d4 because he takes, protecting the queen and counter-attacking mine. So I'll have to move the queen before playing knight d4. But he'll take, I have to recapture, his rook moves. And then maybe the capture on f2. Maybe that's what needs to be done. Certainly, actually. This queen-queen face-off interested me, but it prevents me from playing knight d4. He plays rook e1. So now I'm going to reposition the queen to f7. Because now his queen is protected anyway by the rook. And now if his knight moves, look at the pressure on the pawn at f2. 4 attackers against only 3 defenders, so his knight can't move. So I'm going to focus on that. Maybe on moves like g5 to try to make this knight move. Or a knight d4, knight bishop takes, to attack f2 without him being able to protect it again. He might be able to play f3. But f3 on a white square, protected by the knight, I would play bishop c3. But anyway, here he plays d4. So why is he playing that? I don't know, because here I have 3 captures for just 1 defender. So he's starting to crack. Ah, he's freeing the queen to attack b5. But I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work. Knight takes, bishop takes. If he takes b5, he's going to have a problem on f2 afterwards. I think it won't work. I'm going to take. And now I have the maximum pressure on the pawn f2. You see, you can't do more than that. And he plays f3. But f3, he defends it with the knight. If I play bishop c3, he's got a problem. I'll threaten to take the knight, deflect the queen, and then take on f3. If I take on c4, on the other hand, he can recapture with the queen, controlling the c3 square. So I'm going to play bishop c3. I'm changing my approach. Since my bishop can no longer help me attack the black squares, from f2 it will come to eliminate the defender of the white squares, that is, from f3. And here, after the capture, f3 will still be protected 3 times. I don't know why I said it wouldn't be protected enough. Ah yes, because I was thinking of deflecting the queen, whereas here he will recapture with the rook. It will always be well protected. On the other hand, I can take rook takes and take on c4. He won't be able to take, otherwise he'll lose f3. That's what I'm going to do. And that's going to allow me to win a pawn. The pawn on c4, which I can protect with d5, since the pawn and the queen will also protect it diagonally. Or I can use this pawn as a decoy at some point, push it forward to deflect his pieces and try to win elsewhere. But here we have triple pressure on the pawn on f3, triple defense. But the pawn on c4 is going to interfere with him now. He's going to play rook to c2 to try to win it back. That's what's happening. If I play d5, take, he can win the pawn on e5, but he'll lose the pawn on f3. That interests me. So let's play d5. Still with the goal of deflecting his queen from protecting the pawn on f3. I've staked everything on the file. You see the triple pressure on f3, so he can't take on e5 without losing f3. And now I'm starting to have a mass of pawns in the center. I've tripled on f3. It's almost an Alekhine's gun. Alekhine's gun, the former world champion Alexander Alekhine's idea, was to line up the 2 rooks and the queen behind. To have the 2 rooks in front and the queen behind, that's what was called Alekhine's gun, because he achieved this in several of his games. Here the queen is in the middle. It's not an Alekhine's gun, even though it looks like one. I don't have much time left, unfortunately. 2 minutes, 29 seconds. There are 5 seconds of increment, of added time with each move. That will help me to keep going in this game. He has twice as much time as I do, but he also has twice as many problems. He plays the rook to c3 to defend the pawn on f3 laterally and threaten queen takes e5. If I play d4, he can take on c4 because after queen takes, his queen is defending. So d4, he would be able to take on c4. And now he's about to take the pawn on e5 since the rook is defending. But maybe the move e4. He can't take because of the pin. e4, he'll play f4. And there, I still have 3 very interesting pawns, but on the other hand, I won't have any play on the file anymore. Unless I play g5 to involve my pawn in the fight. And why not? That's what I'm going to do. e4. Always try to play on this pressure file. He's going to push f4, g5. He still can't take. And I'm getting ready to take. He won a new pawn. He exposed his king, even though I have to be careful, because opening the g-file is for both players. It could also turn against me. But since I have a lot of pawns in the center, I'm not that worried. Notice that his rook on c3 is also unprotected. Maybe sometimes a little sidestep with my queen will allow me to attack that rook. He plays queen g4. He comes to pin my g-pawn because my king is behind it. And that's where I was thinking of playing. Queen g7, a little sidestep with my queen, which will unpin my pawn g5 and which will prepare some attacks on his rook, some hidden attacks. So on queen g7, it's not bad. That's what I'm going to do, queen g7. I'm threatening to take it, but I'm also threatening to move the rook to attack his rook. If I play f5, I'll have to see what happens. Rook takes f5, by the way, with the attack on his rook on c3. But I would still have an exposed king. On f5, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes, queen takes. I'm going to take his rook over there. But then his queen will give checks to my king which shelters me. But here he understood the weakness of his rook and preferred to retreat. But now I can take on f4. It's easy, the queens are in a position to be exchanged. If we exchange the queens, all the end games are winning for me. I actually have a mass of pawns. I have a phalanx of pawns here. So we'll calmly exchange and win this pawn. If he attacks on d1, I even have c6, which protects. So now it's a nightmare for him. This endgame with so many fewer pawns. He's down 3 pawns. He's going for b5 to deflect c6 and weaken d5. If I play c3, he plays b5 takes, c2 maybe. He will play rook c1. If I play king f6, if I play b5 takes. I can play king f5 to defend my pawn. He might play maybe b6 or take. Well, I'll just play rook f5. That defends the pawn, and if I play b5, I'm able to take twice without losing d5. And I'll bring my king, of course, to escort the pawns. The rook, what's interesting is that since it stays on the f-file, it cuts off his king. That is to say, his king can't take part in the game. So there you go. I centralize my king, maybe even play h5 to completely prevent his king from participating. And then king to f5, rook to f3, check, his king moves back, rook to b3, maneuvering around. I win the pawn on b4 and the pawn on e4. Even when you're completely winning, you have to be precise because sometimes you can get some real surprises with sudden turnarounds. So you have to maximize the position as long as you can. So there we go, that's it, it takes, but as a result, I've won a new pawn. This pawn, however, I can't protect it. But now all that's left is to bring the pawn to queen. What is he doing? He missed it. Maybe he wanted to take the pawn on b5, but he missed the square. Now he can't stop the pawn anymore, and he resigns. But even if he hadn't missed the square and had taken the pawn on b5, obviously on c2, he's able to play rook c5 and stop the pawn. But in that case, I would have played king d4 to deprive him of squares. And then my king can join forces with this pawn for LAD, but I also have the other pawn that can advance, knowing that the rook prevents the king from stopping the e-pawn. In any case, it was completely lost. The computer gives me 94% accuracy versus 90% for my opponent, but stay tuned because we're going to look at the opening plans and especially the early middle game when I wasn't really sure what to do, how to proceed, and before he opens the f-file for me. So he played e4, e5, knight f3, he attacks the pawn, knight c6, bishop c4, the Italian, we know it, bishop c5, he does the kingside castling, knight to f6, he plays d3, the pawn to d6, and then he plays knight g5. So that's surprising, it's not a very good move. The main move here should be c3, I think, to prepare the d4 push, but he played knight to g5. So here I do kingside castling. I'm not afraid of the double capture. It would be to his disadvantage. He would lose his knight and his bishop, which are the only two pieces that are developed. So knight g5 here actually misses its target. When you can do kingside castling, it doesn't really make sense to play. Knight g5, and now he plays a 3. It's true that I was looking to play. Knight a5. I would have liked to take his bishop on the white square, or at least to divert it from that diagonal. But now with a3, I can't do it anymore. He has the square a2. And I was looking for what to do. By the way, in the game, I played a 6. But the computer shows that I should have played bishop g4. And it's true. It's very interesting. Bishop g4, he can't play f3. Because there's the pin of the pawn f. The knight protects the bishop, attacks the queen. If the queen comes to e1, knight d4 with the attack on pawn c2 and the fork, now that's very interesting as well. And if he brings the knight to f3, then knight d4, we attack his knight, he can defend it, that's true. But when the knight leaves the c-file, and that's it, that's a plan I missed, you'll see that I missed it earlier, it frees up the pawn on c7, which can come to c6 to support the d5 push. So that's a plan for black. but I didn't play it. Bishop g4, I played a 6, he played c3, and then I played h6. So the knight is pushed back, and I wasn't really sure how to play, so I played bishop e6 because I was trying to open the f-file. But the problem is he's not obliged to open the f-file. He's not obliged to make that exchange on e6. And the computer shows the move knight e7. Once again, to free up the pawn, c. That's a plan you need to know. Playing knight g6, for example, to defend the pawn on e5. And sometimes eyeing the square f4. And when the knight is on g6 and defends e5, you can play c6, d5, and develop in the center. A bit like what he does with c3. Well, he can't play d4 right away because there's the pawn on e4, which is also under attack. But I played bishop e6. So he didn't take, he retreated to b3, and then I played b5. I didn't really know what to play. The computer considers that d5 is better, and then he starts to capture. And you might say, but why open the f-file? According to the computer, capturing is the best move. But the f-file opens up. He plays b4, so I retreat to b6. And then he plays c4, and that's when he makes a very bad move. And actually, I don't see it. I don't even see that I can win. A pawn by exchanging on c4, then winning the pawn on e4. I didn't see it at all. Why didn't I see it? Because since I had opened the f-file, I wanted to play on that file. And I played queen to e8 to allow the knight to come to h5. Because if I play knight to h5 right away, I'm afraid the white bishop will leave, attacking my knight. So I play queen to e8. What's more, with queen e8, I can bring my queen to g6 or h5 and project my queen near his castling. So I quite like that. He played queen to e2, the knight to h5, so towards the square f4, bishop e3, knight f4, bishop takes. Of course, we recapture with the rook. I don't want to double my pawns because that would block my file. I want to keep my file open. He plays knight to d2, queen to h5. Well, it's true that there's this pin, but if the knight doesn't move, it's a bit annoying for me because I can't play king d4, as I've explained to you many times. He plays hg-g3, he attacks my rook, I retreat to f6, he plays king g2, I bring back the other rook, he plays rook to e1, and here I decided to play queen f7 because I want to have this possibility to play king d4. But in the end, he's going to give me this opportunity under very good conditions because he plays d4, which is a mistake, of course. He pauses. The computer considers that rook c1 is the best move for white, with the threat perhaps of opening the c-file to attack the knight. In response, you can move the knight. The computer also considers queen d7 to be a good move. It's true that bringing the rook in can also support the c5 push. But I can take and also put the bishop on a5. And in the end, there's the opening of the d-file with this pressure on the backward pawn on d3. So I'm not that afraid of the push from pawn c4 to c5. But that's not what happened. He played d4. So he gave me a pawn, knight takes, bishop takes, I attack the pawn. So he plays f3, but bishop to c3, and the pawns are going to fall one after another. And the computer says that now there's no way for white to stop the loss of the pawns. So he lost them one after another. I took the bishop, I won the pawn on c4, he plays rook c2, but d5 comes to defend everything. Capture, capture, he plays rook to c3, and he pushed e4. He can't take because of the rook, so he plays to f4, but g5. He brought in the queen, I untied the pin. He played rook to c1, he was afraid of the queen-rook face-off, but here I was able to exchange the queens. And of course you saw the rest, which really doesn't need any commentary. I have far too many pawns for him to be able to hold on. So I hope this Italian game was interesting, instructive, and entertaining. And we'll see each other soon for new videos. As always, you can leave me likes and comments. Goodbye, everyone.